Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Founding Lessons. For today's episode, I've invited Ankur Pandey. Ankur is co-founder of Signzy. He's been on Forbes India 30 and the 30 list, and he's my junior from college. I would say that's the most important part about Ankur. Since college, Ankur has been passionate about entrepreneurship. He had a couple of startups even before founding Signzy. Let's quickly jump over to that interview with Ankur and talk to him. Yeah, good. Thanks for accepting the invite and being on the show. Quite excited to have you on my show. I see that you have been founder of a startup for over 7 years now, and you would have a lot of experience to share with our audience. You have also been on Forbes 30 and the 30 list. Uh, so many congratulations for that. I know it's probably quite a late congratulations, but nonetheless. So Ankur, can you tell us about yourself? What did you study in college? What's your background, and why did you decide to start up instead of pursuing some corporate job?
Thanks, Mohit, and thanks for having me, first of all. And kudos to the work you have started, and happy to be part of it. I think in an entrepreneurship journey, that's the list of insecurities or the challenges that people foresee, which may or may not be real, is the main uh, thing that stops them from starting their entrepreneurship journey. Like sometimes they are justified and sometimes not. So happy to share my insights and if it even helps anyone. So thanks, Mohit. Okay, so I and like me and Mohit, we are also college from the same college, IIT Kharagpur. I joined in 2011, dropped out in 2015. I was studying industrial and systems engineering there, Mohit, and uh, like my primary interest towards startup has been since before college. Uh, I did not hear the term startup or entrepreneurship, but it was more doing some kind of a business and creating solutions and impacting a larger set of people rather than what I could just achieve uh, from a simple work environment where I am required to do something which I am taken for. So that was my primary motivation since the beginning. While in college, I did found a couple of startups. Both of them I closed down, and then there was one which did see some traction. But again, to start Signzy, I moved out of the previous startup as well as college. So yeah, that has been my journey before starting Signzy.
You also mentioned you dropped out from college. Uh, I am also not very fan of formal education unless I feel it really helps you learn something that can, push the envelope on something that you're trying to build. For example, let's say if you are trying to create a financial solution, then probably learning something related to finance will help you to solve that problem. But if you study something altogether different, then it's maybe not of use. But why did you exactly decide to drop out from college?
Dropping out was a decision to start, give Signzy a try. Let's see how things turn out, was the thought process I used to have. And basically, while formal education is most of the time not aligned with what you are going to do, whether you are starting up something or even you are taking up for a job or anything else, right? So major chunk of the formal education does suffer from that syndrome. But I was fortunate to have some courses in my department which helped me. Like we had engineering economics, we had algorithmic courses, we had like operations research, and then like the first year which are common. And I did have a lot of friends from the computer science background who were the main motivation for me to get into software development. So formal education, I mean, yeah, you are 100% right. Wherever it helps you achieve something where you want to go, it is useful. But if you are just going to study something which probably you will never use, then it kinds of ends up being not the best use of your time.
Yeah.
However, a lot of times people don't know what they'll be doing, so they still end up spending a lot of time exploring things, and sometimes they get into a core job to their departments or their field of study, and over the time they figure out something, and in the end you end up, and anyways, like school education or college education, you end up not using 90% of that anyways. So I have mixed opinions, but yeah, I dropped out. So
And that sounds like a very daring decision also. If you would have been in college for one more year, I assume you would have had your IIT degree, which, if nothing else, is a good plan B. It's always a good contingency plan to have an IIT degree. So were you very sure that Signzy will eventually work, or you had other plan Bs?
so surety I definitely did not have.
Mhm.
And I having two failed startups as well as one that was not growing too fast as I had expected. So surety is something that I obviously did not have. But for me, it was basically, let's give it a try.
Mhm.
And I having a good co-founders and a good opportunity, and a domain which was like fintech as a popular word did not exist back then. Regulatory tech did not exist at all. Banking industry. So I saw an opportunity to make a disruption and invent some products. So that's how it has been for me. Plan B was to, okay, let's after 1.5 years go back and apologize and get back, something around that. So
That must have been, that would have been very tough. I know
was a
this
daring
is.
decision. I like in hindsight, would I make such a decision today, knowing the risk appetite that has reduced over time? Not
Yeah.
now, but when you are in your early 20s, it's
Right, right. I'm sure this is not something that you would advise any youngster to do. Uh, but yeah, when we are young, we probably take different sort of decisions. How receptive was your family of this decision of yours?
coming from an Orthodox Brahmin family with
Mhm.
Orthodox beliefs. It was tough initially, but
Mhm.
uh, while I did not get a lot of support as such, but I did not also get a lot of resistance. Like
Mhm.
parents were primarily along the lines, ki, okay, you can give whatever you are good in making your own decisions. So
Mhm.
whatever you feel best is okay with us. That has been like, they have always been pushy about going back to the college and leaving a college like IIT, for which I had worked very hard to get into.
Mhm.
And coming from the background that I have come from, it was a big deal. So leaving was even a bigger deal. And parents made sure that made a big deal out of it. But over time, the support has been really good.
Right. Sure. I think one day if you reach those limits, you will get honorary degree from different colleges, and then your
Hopefully,
parents will be very happy.
hopefully.
Yeah. Now, I've got some Signzy specific questions, and I'm pretty sure that today's Signzy is quite different from what you would have wanted to build back in 2015. Can you shed some light on, what exactly you wanted to build in 2015 and what Signzy look like today?
Okay. So yeah, a little bit of context to that. Myself and our co-founders also, we always had this core belief that in the end we are here to solve customers' problem, and
Mhm.
over what we had thought to build, or we had a vision to build. If that needs to be pivoted, we have to do that.
Mhm.
Right. So in our minds, there has been no second thought towards that. Okay.
Mhm.
What we started with was to create a contracting solution for the legal and other technically challenged, if I can call them, other technically challenged areas, right? Where a lot of things were still going in paperwork,
Mhm.
and technology for what technology is did not exist at all. So that was the primary business. But one thing we realized really quickly is that why we are trying to create that contracting is to establish digital trust between
Mhm.
two parties. In a, like when you go to a bank, for which you have a branch present near you, right? So you have a physical place where you know that, okay, this person or this entity I'm trusting because it is in physical proximity, and that physical proximity has been the trust
Mhm.
establishment for
Mhm.
humans for last 500 1000 years, right?
Mhm.
So in a digital world, and the world which is going digital, that proximity does not exist, and you really don't know whom you are talking to.
Right.
So KYC, due diligence, and contracting, these three form the core pillars of that digital trust we were trying to establish.
Mhm.
And focusing on the digital trust, we also got an initial understanding that finance is the domain where the trust issues as well as the risks that will come when those trusts are broken are very high.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a regulated field where you have government regulating agencies, and they are specified to do certain stuff which they are doing in a very cumbersome manner today.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a lot of opportunities to optimize the workflows. Like we have been through our products been able to reduce the onboarding time of certain category of customers, like current account opening, from 15 days to 45 minutes. We don't promise on accounts will get open in 10 minutes, 5 minutes, all that, which generally does not happen also. But the amount of transition we have seen has been really good. Sales has for our clients has increased threefold over the period of using our products, and similarly their turnaround times have reduced as high as 75 to 80%. So what we started with was a contracting solution, but understanding that the trust is what we are getting into, then KYC and due diligence obviously come into the picture, and we also understood that the backend processes have a very cumbersome part to them. So getting feedback from the customers and understanding what the core challenges are and how we can, as a technology provider, solve their core problems of their operations, of their back offices, and making sure that their business grows, right? So that has been the feedback which we took, and we are not very different from what we started to do, but the products that we created had evolved basis the feedbacks that we had gotten from our customers, and over time it has come to where we are today. Uh, the environment of banking and regulation is also quite has been quite adaptive since we started. I mean, I'm not sure before the current government that was there how was it, but when we started there was a lot of support that we got from both the government regulators as well as the banking industry. They wanted the fintechs to be part of their system rather than be as, like, they'd never visualize them as a competitor. They always visualize them as technology enablers, which we also see today as neobanks and other providers. We are not here to replace banks. We are here to support you to get to a larger. So that kind of support and that kind of guidance that we got over time helped evolve our product as well, and where we are today.
And honestly, I find that very surprising to hear, because I believe, or maybe I know this firsthand, that bankers and the entire financial industry is very close-minded. They're not very receptive of new innovations coming their way, things that can probably replace them, or even things that can help them, but they're not very receptive, because like you mentioned, the risk is very high in financial sector. They can't really adopt, or they can't really be the early adapters of a new technology which has not been tested there for years by some other institutions. Because if, for example, privacy, right, if a bank cannot afford data getting leaked, they can't really use a technology which promises something but then later on leads to a data leak. So how did you onboard your first set of customers, and who were your early customers?
I'll answer the first part first. So, adaptability of the banks to technology providers. This is generally, this used to be generally seen as something where you are trading user experience for the security or compliance. So that is one thing that we had to fight for initially, and banks were obviously a little repulsive in the initial parts. Okay, how do I trust you? But the trust comes from you ensuring that whatever compliance you are doing, I am doing in a better manner. I'm not cutting edges on the level of compliance or the security or privacy concerns that you have generally in your products and processes. We are here to enable them to be done faster. Okay, so that has been the trust factor for which we have been able to get that penetration. And in fact, we were always taking the inputs and understanding how it happens and coming up with solutions to make that better and not replace it. So you cannot replace user experience from replace user experience and compromise on the either is not good, right? So in both ways, you are actually ending up in business. If you look at the e-commerce revolution, like our co-founder Ankit uses this analogy a lot, right? So look at Amazon for an instance, or Flipkart, or any other e-commerce providers that are there. So their core product is physical,
Mm-hmm.
but your experience is extremely digital.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Today you order something on Amazon and they'll tell you they'll deliver it on Wednesday and they'll get it delivered.
Mm-hmm.
So that experience is totally digital while the product is physical. But in the financial industry, your product is digital, but actually your experience is very physical.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So can we think of products or processes which uh, can make that digital product experience as well to be digital?
Mm-hmm.
So that is what has been our core thought process while inventing our products.
Nice.
And on the second hand, when the receptivity of the banks till they are compliant and till they are assured about the security, like they are paranoid about security and they audit us like anything. Every bank audits us like we it gets harder over time.
Yeah.
So till they are satisfied, I think they are very receptive, and our job as a fintech provider is also to not compromise on the security and challenges of the banks also.
Sure. Now, the business Signzy is in, it's definitely a serious business. It's not, I can't compare Signzy with the likes of, let's say, TikTok or similar apps. That's more catering to, let's say, young minds and, doing casual stuff, but this is serious business. That's why I would like to believe that onboarding your first client would have been very hard. You can't just onboard a bank. So what did your MVP look like? Now, even today, when you tell me this idea, I'll say, great idea, but I see difficulties in even creating a MVP for this idea and onboarding clients. So can you talk about that?
Yeah. So our initial onboarding that we had come up with was a merchant onboarding solution. And in fact, I would like to mention an event which actually turned like a very, very positive thing for us over time, right? So there was in June, I think June 2016, there was an payment system innovation contest held by RBI. Okay. And the other other competitors, like there were 11 participants in that, and other competitors were all banks, and this was before UPI had come into the like existence. So the solutions that they had proposed all was like me having a card, and a Tela vendor has a card, and every merchant has a card. So I swipe it, and then all the stuff used to happen. And this was before the invention of UPI. And the common feedback that everybody had gotten was like, your mobile device SIM card has equal amount of security whatever you are proposing. And these are all services, all the products that they were doing was almost like, while they were talking, 1 lakh rupee transaction has already happened, equivalent to that. And we came into that system as a onboarding provider. Like what our proposal was that, okay, finance is good, but how do you bring that financial inclusion into the picture? How do you get the merchants to onboard really fast into your system? And can I like, instead of doing that extremely cumbersome process, can I make it really quick, and within 5 to 10 clicks and maybe a couple of minutes, can I get a system on get a person onboarded into a system, or a merchant onboarded into a system? So that and we won that competition as a first prize, and that was a turning point for us. And having that endorsement from RBI themselves actually helped pave our way into the banks. And like a company of 10 people, 6 month old, winning a contest actually helps us to build that trust with the banks. Okay, yeah, we are not here to kid around. So that has been a fortunate thing for us. And obviously luck plays a lot of role in entrepreneurship. So that has been a lucky moment. And once we started getting into banks, we started with small products, giving them APIs for their starting with government data sources which are available, aggregating them into a central database, and then also doing live connectivity governments with the government systems. The data is obviously publicly available, but how do you access them is the challenge, right? So we started with that, and over time we built our products, and right now we are at a our core product is the digital banking infrastructure, which helps people automate their entire back office processes with use of individual microservices.
Sure.
So and over time we had like one client endorsement leads to the next, and that's how you evolve.
Sure. You also mentioned luck. So just one tangent question from there. Is it possible for an entrepreneur to circumvent luck using certain methods, saying that, I'll ensure that there is no involvement of luck?
No. So I'll put it in a different way. Like while hard work plays its role, and while luck comes to your door, and it comes for everyone, right? So you cannot remove luck, but you can be fully prepared whenever that opportunity comes to you to make use of that. So that's how the not only entrepreneurship, anything in the world works, right? So even there is a video by Veritasium YouTube channel, and they have explained it really well. Like the 11 astronauts that get selected out of 10,000 incoming batch will be different if that is done again. Like the 90% of the factor of success is luck, but yeah, that 10% which is your hard work is important if you want to utilize that 90%. So while luck is not always how you want to go it, but what is in your hand is to make that hard work so that when that luck comes in, you can make use of that. I would put it that way.
Yeah. I think quite a fair point. And the most interesting thing that you said was always be prepared. If an opportunity strikes at your door, you should be ready to grab it. That's quite the fair way to look at it. Now, if you have to give a small run book to budding entrepreneurs, saying that, hey, when you come up with idea, do this, and then convert that idea into reality, how would that run book look like?
If I were to write 10 points in that, I would write listen to your customer, listen to your customer, listen to your customers. So I think that is the core point, and that is one thing that I see a lot of early entrepreneurs missing that point. Because what they see is, and they're driven a lot by the passion. Passion to create products and passion to solve problems, but a lot of times problems also evolve and the goalpost shifts. So till you understand what exactly is needed in the market and you optimize every time using to that, is what your standard approach should be. Like every time your priority changes, if you have a list of 100 things and you're doing the first priority thing, instead of once that is done, instead of going into the second priority, you actually look at everything again and see what is the next priority. So this is the standard operating procedure. If I were to give you in a very nutshell, that if once you start following this, things start falling into the place as well. Because whenever you're starting of something, right, it's a lot of times the questions people struggle in their minds is idea versus execution. So while idea is important, okay, and something that you start your business as creating, a lot of times you get a lot of new ideas over time. And to get that ideas, but the core focus is execution. Always, you don't need to be the innovators there, but somebody who executes it better will be a winner. So if you start with a passion to solve a problem in a particular segment, niche, or a wider segment as well, if you start with that passion, then things are much clearer for you over the time.
Sure. And when you come up with an idea, how do you assert that there is a market for that idea? I mean, even before you start with the execution part, you would want to make sure that there is a market to consume my idea.
It's a very tough thing. Even today, when we create products, right, a lot of that is based on the research, but that research, we understand that it may go even up to 50% down, 75% down from what we thought, and even 1,000% up. It's a very difficult thing to do, but having a ballpark estimate is good enough for you to start into building something. And ideas evolve over time, right? So just on one idea, setting up a market size and thinking that this is the entire boundary in which I'll play the game is certainly a recipe for failure. Ideas evolve over time, but market sizing is a difficult thing. You can only work on the projections that you can get from your, if you have a penetration into the market through connects, you can get through them, or have a projection at least. And more than the market size, it's important to also grasp the concept of what part of that market side will you be able to capture. While let's say edtech is huge, 47-50 billion market as of these days, how much market will you be able to capture if you start today is the question you have to ask yourselves.
Sure. And I see a lot of people today are attracted to entrepreneurship because of the glamour it has got to offer. Can you shed some light on the realities of entrepreneurship, how it can be different from what exactly is portrayed?
Yeah, it's glamorous, but the problem with glamorous professions is the success rates is very less. Right. So the glamour that comes out of is from the success stories, but they fail to portray the failure stories in that. So just because of glamour, you should never get into entrepreneurship. I'm telling, I can tell from my experience and experience of everybody else. Entrepreneurship is much harder. If you're just going for glamour, you'll run away in maybe a year's time. So unless you have that passion and the desire to put that effort in, it is not worth the time. Like whatever you'll put even into starting something. It is glamorous once you're successful, but not before that. And you are doing a lot of dirty work all the time. Like when a lot of time people, you will hear people saying, "I'll work for myself," but when you're an entrepreneur, you're working for everybody else and never for yourself. So you're working for your employees, you're working for your last person in your team, you're working for your clients, you're working for the clients, and that like thought process of that I'm working for myself, I are my own boss, that goes for a toss immediately.
Yeah. And that never works, I believe, right? You still have got people to report to. You have investors in your firm. You would have, board members you would have to report to. That's great.
You are in the end, you're reporting for the clients, right? So
Yeah.
you have to set up spies for clients in your own team in the end, so that you can create products which they want.
Right. Right. Do you believe that anyone can be a successful entrepreneur, or someone needs to have some inborn talent to pursue this path and then be successful?
Depends on the scale that we are talking about. Okay, so entrepreneurship, each one of us have a knack for entrepreneurship. We all of us like to create, like that's a psychological thing in human beings, to create something which can solve problems, and in the end, that's why we are here, right? So that knack is there, and at a certain scale, everybody can be. But once you start growing, right, you have to have a skill to make the problem smaller than yourselves. Companies grow faster than individuals, that is for sure. And as founders or as entrepreneurs, the core job that you have is to make the problems, like the product you start with uh, initially. Now you have to make sure that that product is supported by much less number of resources or your investment than what you started it with, right? So that condensation is very important. And if like all founders have to grow out of their roles that they start initially, and then over time grow out of out of each and every role that they start. So that is one core thing that if you ask me, one skill that every founder needs to have, or every entrepreneur needs to have, to make a successful and scalable business, is how to outgrow themselves.
Sure. I think early in the call, I mentioned that I'm not really big fan of formal education, but are there any formal programs for entrepreneurs in India that can mentor them, help them with this journey?
There are lots of accelerators as well, and because entrepreneurship is not something that you cannot go by somebody else's experience. While you can learn some patterns, but it's what, like once you start doing it is when you realize what you're getting into. Like there is a popular analogy that people give: building a plane while you start flying. Lots of good accelerator programs are there, and we have been able to take a good amount of our suggestions and guidance from the accelerator programs we got into. And even larger companies like Google do accelerator programs. We have been fortunate to be part of it, and we learned extremely lots of stuff from them, which we were able to implement in our systems as well. So if the question is there help available? Yes, it's available across the market. And there are other entrepreneurs, there are companies who are helping younger folks to like to understand how to get things done.
Sure. And how do you raise funds for your startups? Let's say you've been part of a formal program, you have got an MVP, you have got few customers as well. How do you raise funds, and where exactly you go to raise funds?
After a period, the chasing is done by investors and not the entrepreneurs once you start getting into the market, right? But before raising funds, it's also important to understand why you want to do that. Unless you are an operational heavy business, you don't really need funds to run the business, but funds you would want to grow, right? When you have that growth strategy in mind, then you have an understanding of what kind of funding you require and what kind of what kind of guidance do you expect from the investors and their connects, right? So once you have these core factors in mind, one is what kind of money you need, what kind of connects you need, and what kind of help you would expect in your earlier days. Then you can specifically target those kinds of investors. If you're very early, the angels or the mentors, initial mentors that you'll pick, or they'll also invest some money with you to build the initial product. The core thing to keep in mind is the amount of money you need and the kind of guidance you'll require to make that thing happen. Because somebody who has skin in the game will come and help you. Otherwise, no. So these are the areas, and like the problem that existed long back of finding the right set of investors it has diminished now. We have a lot of forums and investor meetups, and getting the connects is easy, but like having the right set of strategy in your mind is what is going to make you make a right decision.
Sure. I've got one final but multi-part question. What has been your key learnings, and what would be your word of advice for the budding entrepreneurs? And what do you feel about the current growth rate of India? Is it going to sustain? Where do you see India in next 10 years, let's say?
India is the, if I were to put in that way, India is the most exciting place to be in the world right now. On the growth of India possibilities that are there, I personally have no doubt, and that is what we hear from the leaders in the country, as both in the political arena and the business arena. Growth is going to be phenomenal. It may not be as expected, let's say 11% growth every year for next 10 years. That may not happen, but definitely India is on a track, and that is something that I can vouch for. So growth potential of India is huge, but when you're getting into business, right, so you're also looking at different geographies once you start expanding. Which geographies will you get even more business, or does it make sense for you to grow outside this geography? Is the question you will have. India has a lot of potential, and the digital revolution that's going on in India has already put us in a leapfrog status. And lots of our government initiatives, while I personally am not fully for government initiatives, like UPI is owned by government, if ONDC is successful, that is owned by government. So we will move in a socialistic pattern, but even with that, the potential is high, and I am very optimistic for that. So, and the second thing, like the generation that is in India right now is a millennial generation, and we have access to the second cheapest internet in the world, and we are using it for different kinds of innovations. And like digital revolution is, we are at a very advanced level compared to other geographies from what I have seen, and definitely a very positive time for India. And personally, I have a lot of hopes.
And what were your key learnings from your startup experience?
Okay, so as an engineer, my thought process has always been to get that intellectual simulation for myself whenever I'm building something. That used to be my primary motive in the initial periods. Over time, that has moved from brain to heart now. And understanding the problem and actually worrying, considering that you are wanting to solve those problems is what is going to keep you in the game and keeping you motivated and wanting you to go to an office every day, get up and start working. So from brain, it has shifted to heart over time. And I think if you were to ask me, one key learning that I've had from there is not to just focus on that simple intellectual simulation, but you also need to be passionate about what you're doing.
Oh, cool. So that's all. Those were the only questions I had for you. Thanks a lot for being on the show and sharing the insights with our audience. Have a good day.
Thanks. Have a good day. Take care. Bye.
I hope you guys enjoyed that interview. If you did, press the like button on this video. If you enjoy the content of my channel, do subscribe and press that bell icon so that you can receive notification when my next video is out. Till then, stay healthy, keep innovating, and we'll meet soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.